Hi, this is Johannes from Cult of Luna, and this is Evil Greed's Distro Picks. So yeah, I've been pillaging through Evil Greed's, not collection, what would you say, distribution central. They're probably already regretting it. And I'm gonna start with some shameless self-promotion. This is the band Burge in Row with the amazing records Gris Klein. And this is the first band that our record label put out. And I wouldn't be doing this shameless self-promotion if I didn't think it was actually a really good record. I remember when I got the master before we ever decided to sign them. And I mean, they have their own kind of artsy screamo, post-punk, rock, whatever. They're using their instruments to make sounds I don't understand how they do, and it was such an interesting thing to tour with them last fall and see this come to life on a live stage, and I'm really proud that this is the first non-Cult of Luna affiliated band that we ever put out. Let's mix them up. I'll just pull something out of this. Oh, Morbid Angel. So, I am still a huge fan of Morbid Angel. And I know that Covenant and Domination is the two albums that most people love, and I do too. Domination is probably my favorite, even though Covenant is the right answer. But also, I love the band after Steve Tucker got into the band. I know a lot of people lost interest in them, but I still do love like Foremost Fatal to the Flesh and also Heretic. And one interesting thing about this record that I really love, I can't remember, I think it's which song, Enshrined by Grace, which is interesting for me as a movie fan too, because that was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre back in 2004, maybe? I can't remember. Oh, 3. So yeah, and I actually, I can't remember the name of their last record where they included a lot of industrial elements with Everybody Hated. I didn't. I liked that too. So yeah, forever a fan of Morbid Angel. Here's a band that I got to, that I discovered quite recently. Be Well, and one of the band that I got into the 90s is Battery, Washington DC hardcore band that featured Brian McTernan. I hope I didn't butcher his last name. I also was a huge fan of the band Ashes that he was a part of. I think maybe he was in a few bands between that. But I listened to a podcast where they interviewed him, and he talked about his new band, Be Well. And it is amazing. It is, he sings more in this band than he did on Battery. He has an amazing voice, but I think that he has such a talent of writing lyrics that strikes the heart. I mean, that really, really moves you, and especially as a parent, There's a lot of subject matter that involves the relationship with the kids and all that. And this one came out last year, I think, which is equally as good as the album. I mean, check it. If you like melodic hardcore, this is definitely worth checking out.
Hello, sound, wake me up, take away what the darkness brought.
So this is Shelter, When 20 Summers Pass, and I just realized something really cool about this album. You have this in it. Yeah, okay, so I got into Shelter, like that was one of the first bands that I got into back in 93 or something like that. They just released Attendance Supreme, and I just missed them when they played in Umeå. That was like, they played in 93, I got into hardcore like seriously in 94. And as with many bands, I had to check their discography from start to finish, or from finish to start at that moment. But then they released Mantra on Roadrunner, which I actually thought was amazing. Much more melodical than, well, they've always been kind of melodic, at least from Attending the Supreme. And then Mantra, they were more like mainstream-ish kind of thing. And then I lost track of them. And I totally missed this record. And it was very recently. I kind of knew that it existed, but I didn't care much for them. Then I listened to it just, I would say a few years ago. And it was, I mean, it kind of continues where they left off with Mantra, but still, it feels like they're doing it again for the fun of it, because being signed to Roadrunner as they were on Mantra, it felt like they kind of influenced them to go in a more mainstream direction. And they took like both of those two worlds and made this record, which is really, really great. I don't care much for their philosophy though, but I love the music for sure.
I've got to concentrate on priorities in the game. What makes the most of me? What's our fate? What's our destiny? Start with these moments and day. Try.
This record, Swans, a soundtrack for the blind. I know I'm going to use these words a lot with all these records, but this has meant a lot to me. I had a couple of years in the early 2000s, which was not the best years for me. It was quite bleak and dark. And I think Inge from the International Noise Conspiracy, he borrowed me this on CD. He still haven't got it back. I still have it. And because he knew what we were doing with Cult of Luna. I mean, we're not doing the same thing, but we experimented with a lot of things. And this whole album is, I think the title says it all, Soundtrack for the Blind. It's just things happening. It's like a audio experiment, and it's noise, and it's like beautiful songs. And it's this song on, I think it's on the third CD, I know, it's called The Sound. I think it's like a 12-minute song. It's a beautiful, just guitar and vocals. Yeah, number 2 on LP3, The Sound, 13 minutes. And I remember I had, when I was, when I had a big depressive phase, I had a hard time falling asleep. So I fell asleep to that song. It's just beautiful, soothing. The problem was that the song after, which is called Her Mouth is Filled with Honey, it's basically just noise, and it's this bell ring, bing, bing, bing. So I fell asleep to the sound, and I woke up in panic by that bell and thought that the fire alarm was going off. That was not a good experience, but all in all, I cannot say enough good things about this record. It's if you're into like experimentation with sounds, this is it. So the reason why I picked these two records by Amenra. It's Mass number 6 and The Dawn, which I have no idea what it means in Dutch. But the reason why I picked those two albums is that Amenra and us kind of started basically during the early we started early 90s. But anyway, we kind of have followed them through all these years. I mean, we have followed each other for 20 odd years. And it's been such a interesting thing to see. I mean, first of all, not many bands had this long career. And then I know firsthand how hard it is to still be creative, do the same thing, but in a different way. And yeah, I have their first record. I don't have these. Unfortunately, sometimes I just forget to get new stuff. But what I really appreciate about Colin and his band is that they constantly trying to evolve but still stay true to who they are. And they, I mean, as when it comes to us, we have kind of a wide range of what we can do, and I think they absolutely still hold true to the core of what Amenra is. And I know that everyone that listening to them know that they're just a bunch of fanatics, and I love them for it. Yeah, me and Colin have talked a lot about our old roots to the hardcore scene, and I mean they were from. I mean, we both came from very like hardcore clusters. I mean, you almost can say like they came from the Belgian, what do you call it, like 8,000 scene. I don't know. And I came from the Umeå scene, which is like a small city, a lot of bands. But the interesting about that is, I can just talk for Umeå, is that even though we all started off playing hardcore, we were all very supportive to each other to go to every direction that musical direction, even though we went to completely different. I mean, look, I mean, there's a lot of successful bands that comes from this scene that has taken, like, we all are friends, still friends, and are from a very like small group of people but play very different kinds of music. I mean, you have Refused, us. There's some bands you probably haven't heard of, but are kind of successful in Sweden that just play pop. And we're all friends. We all hang out still. But Meshuggah is from the same scene, like a generation older than me. But they started off playing hardcore shows with Step Forward that later turned into Refused. And I know that I talked to Colin about their roots in the hardcore scene in Belgium. So yeah, I mean, we have the same references when it comes to good music. I think so. I mean, I'm not. I mean, that was something that was hanging over us for the first couple of years that we were doing this band. And yes, I mean, there's no denying that. Yeah, I mean, they were definitely inspiring in terms of the energy. I remember I watched them play in '99 when they supported the Times of Grace album, which is probably the best show I ever been to, the most rewarding show I ever been to. It was like aggression in musical form, but still, it was like a mass, a non-religious mass. Yeah, like Amenra named their first record. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of soundtracks, and this first one is amazing. I've always been a fan of I don't even know what, are they calling it synthwave? Or yeah, I've always been a huge fan. I grew up during the 80s, for crying out loud. I mean, you'll see there's other example of that in this pile. I was so happy when this kind of wave of synth waves came back in mid 2000. I mean, before we start shooting this, we talked about other soundtracks like Chronicle of the Wasteland and all that. And since I write a lot, I always need music just to keep me inspired. And I listen a lot to this, for sure. I actually, I took the wrong one. This is the second season, but it doesn't matter. I listened much more to the first season, and one thing that I love about this series is that it got my daughter into like this is a gateway into such amazing movies like The Goonies, Back to the Future, Gremlins, and all that. So what Stranger Things have done is not only is for people like me that grew up during the 80s, but also for my kids to get them into some good movies. And so this soundtrack and this series has made a lot of kids much richer when it comes to cultural experience from the 80s.